uh, welcome again. And can you tell us a bit about Smartsuite, how you came to life, and about the team and where you at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. So I'm Avi, head of partnerships at Smartsuite. Smartsuite is a work management platform. And so the positioning or just to lay out the market landscape as we see it is, the no code arena is obviously exploding and many tools are being added. But primarily as you see it, you'll see when you look at the different category of tools, the two big category of tools would be either no code databases, right? Like Airtable, great no code databases. And then there are project slash task management tools like Monday,
Monday,
ClickUp, Asana, and so on. In the challenge becomes when you want to marry the two and have a project management tool with your data, or have a relational database with tasks on top of it. And that becomes challenging since typically the tools are built to do one or the other, which is where Smartsuite kind of enters the market as a work management platform where you can manage any type of process in the platform. And so as you'll see in a moment where, we tried to address the pain points that people have with traditional no-code relational databases. And so we built kind of a better no-code database. At the same time, we also added components of project slash task management so that you can use one tool to manage one process. And then we're headed in the direction of allowing you to run your CRM within Smartsuite. And again, these are custom setups that you would do within the space, but we're enabling the core features that would allow you to do that and not say, oh, I need to go to a different platform to try to build that out. And so that's kind of the positioning of Smartsuite. And I'm happy to, dive more into it and obviously take questions as we go. But as you mentioned, one interesting thing about Smartsuite, well, actually two interesting things about Smartsuite is the first one is that, typically in the SaaS market today, you have the MVP approach where, you try to come up with a quick iteration of the product, launch it, and then iterate as fast as possible based on customer feedback. The challenge with that and why Smartsuite chose not to do that is that when you, first of all, the competitive
the product of the Smartsuite product itself, right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So we at Smartsuite we picked not to do that, and so we actually at Smartsuite spent 3 years developing behind the scenes without allowing anyone into the product. We spent over $15 million with over 100 engineers building the core platform. As you'll see, the platform is very mature, even though many of you may have not heard of it, and we just launched.
It came out of nowhere. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, so the platform is very mature for an early stage startup, and the reason is we're not an early stage startup, right? We're from a customer perspective, we are 12 months on the market, but from a dev perspective, we're 4 years on the market. Our dev cycle is very mature. Our dev teams have been working together for 4 years, and so here I guess the two reasons we chose not to go down the typical MVP route. One would be we didn't want to be perceived as always catching up to the market, right? So we didn't want to launch with like a half-baked product and then we're always catching up to the competition, which is why we kind of enter the market ready to compete with the full feature set, and now we can kind of expand on that based on customer feedback. The second point, which ties into that, is that the way we see it is typically startups, when they launch with whatever they were able to bring to market day one. And then there's a certain amount of runway that they can iterate quickly as a smaller company based on customer feedback until, hopefully their user base grows and then things start slowing down. You have to be more careful about the release and the,
correct.
The
we see this often. Yeah.
And so we kind of wanted to take this category of tools an extra 40 to 50% on top of what existed on the market, which is why we wanted to come to market with a fully baked product based on what products look like today, and then have that extra 40 to 50% runway to iterate on what currently exists, which is how we're able to add so many, amazing industry leading features so quickly, on top of what you would consider a full product. And so That is, I guess, fun fact number one. Fun fact number two is a quick one. Is just Smartsuite decided to launch globally from day one. And so that means we are localized in over 15 languages, including French. And so, which is
you are one of
exciting.
the only actually no-code tools that have localized the interface. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're very excited about the French market. We see tremendous opportunity. We're very excited about the European market as a whole. And we really appreciate the opportunity for helping us enter that market. So
Great. I think that's enough teasing for the viewers now. So we will dive into the product demo if you're okay. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Put your screen up. Yeah. All right.
Okay, excellent. Well, this is Smartsuite. You can, as you'll probably see, and for those of you who are already familiar with no-code databases like Airtable, I can, make this journey a little shorter for you. This is basically the same concept or structure as Airtable. As we spoke, it has the full relational database component. So at Smartsuite, we call each of these solutions. One thing you'll see throughout as a theme is that we give you a lot more granular control over how things look, how things feel, and how things interact than existing platforms on the market to address specific pain points. And so each one of these would be called solutions. And if I click into the hiring solution, each one of these we call apps. That would be the equivalent of bases and tables and Airtable, obviously. And then we have our different field types and we have our different view types, right? So and then you have your controls up top over here and so on. And so one interesting thing, and obviously one of the main components of having a relational database is having the linked record field type. And so first of all, we have over 40 different field types that are data validated, including like address fields that are autocomplete and so on. And so we really put a lot of signature field types.
I love the address field that pulls up a map. That's really efficient. Yeah.
Yep. We have a lot of customers that use that with then they can layer. We had a customer actually who used the address field to put in all of their properties, and then they put in all their vendors, and then they looked at it in a map view and saw which properties don't have vendors nearby. And, so yeah, very, very, very useful over there. But going back for a second to linked record. So the linked record field type would be something you're probably all familiar with. The one interesting thing we fixed in Smartsuite is you don't have to stay in the same solution to link records, and you don't have to sync bases to be able to link records. You can link across the entire workspace. And so I can be in my hiring solution and I can link to a completely separate onboarding solution. And I can link then to a completely separate IT solution. And I can link then to a whole separate employee directory solution. And so essentially this opens up a lot of the record limitations, because obviously the 250,000 records per solution means now that you can have all your contacts in one solution, 250,000, and link them to companies in another solution, another 250,000. You don't have to sync bases. And so that opens up a lot. Obviously, as you can tell,
that's huge, obviously, compared to what we're used to.
Yeah. So, and then, you can obviously, control the display field. You can get into the advanced settings of controlling what fields show up when you're selecting, or filter. This is actually an interesting one. So I can say I only want to be able to link to active job boards, right? And so I won't necessarily have to filter through my whole list. I can pre-filter my linking list. And so that would be kind of one significant area to keep in mind when you're comparing the tool. When you're kind of coming, I guess, from other relational databases like Airtable is just to quickly catch you up, it's pretty much similar, a few differences. Another thing is we have dashboards as a field type. As a view type, instead of going the route of interfaces, dashboards are built right into the platform. And so essentially when you set up a dashboard, first of all, we have every view type embeddable. So this is, for example, a grid view that's embedded in my dashboard. And then I can add any type of widget. I can pull widgets in from any other solution or app. So I can have one dashboard that pulls data from across the platform, or, my HR manager can have her data from applicants, open jobs, as well as interviews, even though they're different solutions. And essentially you can just build out kind of your different, different widgets, play around with them, you move them around, and so on. And then obviously every widget is actionable. And so, for example, if I see over here I have, 23% product managers, I can kind of look over here and see. I can obviously change with the fields that show up over here by default. When I'm looking at this information, then I can click into any record and start working on this record. In terms of how, now these are records, and I'll just go back to the views. So we have obviously all the different views you can think about. We got a little fancy with some of them, adding like swim lanes within grid views and so on. Let's just display a few fields over here so we can work with the solution. And so on the grid view, so if you're in a particular record, one interesting thing we did is sections, as you can see over here. So you can organize information into sections, move field types between different sections. You can start new sections to categorize information. So you can just simply add a new section. And then the last thing you can do is you can collapse sections by default. So if it's information that you don't typically use, it just kind of has to be in the record on the background. That can be collapsed by default. And so essentially you can store a lot more information in particular records and not worry about.
Oh, sorry. There's no difference when you pull information from a record that is in another solution compared to when you pull from information from a record that is in this particular solution you're building the dashboard in, or?
So I guess the dashboard, let me just make sure I understand your question. In the dashboards, I can pull in data from other solutions or apps. Mm-hmm. Now, going back to a regular grid view, I'm just showing the page display of each record. And each record is just, you can't, at the moment, you can't pull in information to a particular record from another solution unless you have, linked records, which then you can do roll-ups and lookups.
Sure. Yeah.
But the customization on the actual record page is obviously, as you can tell, you can kind of organize solutions. You can also change the page settings. So you can switch to a one column. You can switch to a 70-30. You can move fields around, start new sections, and so on. And so that's an interesting thing. Another thing, and this, again, like I was sharing before, just allowing users to enter different spaces. And so typically you'd have a comments section, which obviously works as you can imagine. You can mention people, you can assign them to comments and so on. You can respond and react to comments. What Smartsuite added is an email tab. And so emails essentially allow you to email from a particular record. If the record has an email address, it pre-populates it over here. You can obviously type in, other email addresses. And then you can enter subjects. You can also have email templates where you manage templates that pull dynamic information from your record. So, if you're in a prospecting solution and you want to just quickly email your prospects, you can do that right from within here. You would send the email, and the email actually gets logged as an email, which is kind of an external comment as we see it, to the record. And then any replies will come right back into replies to that record. And so the way we see it is, we started off with comments, and we quickly got the feedback saying, when I'm working on a project or when I'm in my CRM, comments are great for internal communication, to be able to communicate on the record with the context. But then what do I do if I need to communicate externally with people who are not with me in Smartsuite? Nice. Customers, prospects, vendors. And so that's why we went ahead and added this email field, which is being very much used. So that is another area. I guess I'll dive into permissions real quick, because that's also another quick area to highlight. So permissions, we get very granular at Smartsuite. And so you can have, obviously, typical solutions where all members have access to this solution, only specific teams. And so as you're adding users in Smartsuite, you categorize them into specific teams. And so it makes it easier to manage things. You can move people in and out of teams, and based on that, their access gets, changed. But then we have advanced permissions. And advanced permissions, you can either select specific team members or you can select specific teams. And you have 5 different roles that you can give them access to. And so you can give them full access where they can edit and add records. You give them editor access where they can, view other records and but not add ones. You can have contributor. Assignee is an interesting one. So assignee means only records that you're assigned to will you see and edit. You won't see other records that you're not assigned to. And so I can be in a base with 200,000 records, but since I'm only assigned to 20 of them, I will only see 20 of them. Then there's commenter, who can only comment on records, and viewers can only comment. Some of these permissions can be stacked up one on top of each other. So maybe I can only see records I'm assigned to. Maybe I can only comment on records I'm assigned to. And then the last piece over here is solution manager, which means who can actually manage the structure. And so one of the big challenges is, when you deploy a solution like this, it almost becomes a free-for-all. People start creating solutions and changing solutions, and you can barely control kind of what you're doing. And so we have solution managers, and solution managers are the only ones who can change the structure of the solution. And so in order to change, add apps or do all sorts of things, you have to be added as a solution manager, which is kind of like, part of the permissions, but separate than the data permissions. There's actual solution builder permissions. And then we get one step more granular, which is every field type has field level permissions. And so really in Smartsuite, what you can have is set up specific fields that maybe you don't want your team members to see. Maybe they're leadership related fields or finance related fields on projects, and you want to estimate costs and hours spent and so on. And you can control specific fields, who can see and who can edit down to the field level. And so that is another area that is addressed well in Smartsuite, where you can get as granular as you can imagine when it comes to permissions. I'll pause here. Any specific questions or areas you want me to address, or I'm happy to show a few more areas, take questions.
First, I think overall with this kind of explanation and demo, we really understand the positioning you were explaining at the beginning, which is more of a like you described it, a work management solution rather than purely being a visual database kind of solution. And we can see and feel it in the feature set actually. And that's really So I think that's really clear. It's probably a lot of questions we want to ask for many details. One that popped into my head right away when you were showing the dashboard earlier is can I embed the whole thing, outside of Smartsuite, like on a website or something?
That's an excellent.
Live KPIs of some activity or something.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So embedding in dashboards is coming very soon.
Okay.
What we do have live right now is grid view embeds. So you can share a grid view either with a direct link or with a embeddable link. And again, just throughout this, as you can tell, the theme in Smartsuite is giving you granular control. And so you can share all fields. You can allow data to be exported or not allow it. You can allow viewers to open records. You can display the toolbar, which is these, this over here, to allow users to group or filter things as they're going through their session or not. And then the last piece is you can restrict access with a passcode. And so maybe you want to put up a grid view on your website or share it with a client via a link, but you want to set up a password. And so you can simply set up whatever password you want, toggle it on and off, and so on. And so that is, obviously one piece. The other, obviously, shareable area is forms. And so we have actually logic built into forms. So this is actually a pretty new feature. So you can set up conditional logic in forms. So based on a response to a certain question, should the next question
within the form itself. Nice.
Yeah. And so and you can add multiple conditions stacked up one on top of each other and so on. And then forms obviously can be embedded or shared as a direct link. Solutions actually can be done the same. So solutions can be shared or embedded, the entire solution. And this might address actually your case, which is if you set up a solution that only has one view in it, one app, and that one app has one
dashboard.
And that's the default view, you can share it. And that can be shared over here. And then the two options you have over here is, do I want to allow users to copy the solution? So this is actually helpful with no-code consultants. So if I built out a template in my workspace and I want to deploy that to my client, I can send them a link and allow them to copy the solution. And when they receive it, they'll see the full solution structure. And if they want it, they can just click the button up top over here on the right, and it would essentially allow them to duplicate the solution into their own workspace. And then obviously restrict with a passcode, but essentially you can share an entire solution, which might address your use case of sharing dashboards.
Got it. Forgot to click on the Q&A section because I think we're gonna take some questions from the chat. One question from Marin is, how does it work if I want to automate like the workflow outside of Smartsuite? Like, I think what he's leaning on or hinting at right now is you have like a native Zapier integration, right?
Yep.
And I'll have a follow-up question after that, but can you show us a bit the automation kind of?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess when we think about automation, there's, I guess, multiple pieces to it, as with any platform. And so the first piece is we built in our own native automations. And so, if I come over here and wanted to add an automation, we have all these triggers, and we're now adding software triggers as well. So we first worked on internal triggers. And then the actions, we kind of built out all these different software tools as native integrations. As you see over here, Slack, Twilio, Microsoft, Google, and so on. And so as we're going along, based on user feedback, we're adding more and more actions within each of these softwares to be able to do different things. Our deployment cycle for this is fairly quickly because we were able to kind of bring on a platform on the back end that helps us do this.
Oh, I see.
With the concept of no code on the back end, so we can deploy these very quickly. We have update record, find record, send an email, create a record, and then all these different software actions. We're adding more software integrations, as well as we're adding more software integrations like Gmail over here on the actions.
Interesting. That's quite, because of course the actions we can imagine easily like adding more and more, but the triggers being also outside of Smartsuite, that's quite new as well.
Yeah. And so I guess
do that with something external like Zapier or Make, right? But here you kind of brought that into the product.
Exactly. And again, that was based on we're trying to make it easier and more cost effective for our users. And if so we see something being utilized heavily or being requested heavily, we want to build that into the core platform. And for us, it's pretty straightforward to add the triggers on the software side. And so as you can see over here, this is coming soon, and we're going to have a bunch more over here where you can basically set it up over here, and it kind of listens to a webhook from an external tool. And then we obviously have webhook as a trigger, so you can set up your own custom webhooks. And so I guess that's step number one for automations. You can see the history of the automations over here. You can see the time zone and so on. That's what we call our own native or internal automations. The next piece for that is obviously Zapier and Make. So Zapier is right over here. If you just click, you'll reach the Zapier, and you can obviously connect Smartsuite. We really work to refine our different triggers and actions that we added in Zapier to make sure they're super extensive. And we did the same thing with Make.com. And so Make.com is fully integrated, as well as, we really worked extensively to make sure we have all the different triggers and records. Then you obviously have your API documentation if you want to get a little more custom. And so API documentation is per solution, and we have over here the different information. You might be familiar with this kind of concept. And then if you want to switch to API of a different solution, you'd be able to switch over there. Your API key.
How do you manage the authentication for the API? Is it like per account or per solution, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it's per. I believe it's per. So the API key is per person, so per account basically. And then within that account, you choose what workspace you're part of, right? So if you have multiple workspaces, you'd be able to flip with one account between different workspaces. And so when you put in your API key as a user, you choose, the next question typically is what workspace.
What workspace? Okay.
Yeah. And then the last piece I'll just show real quick is Ply. So Ply is an innovative new extension. They actually just launched yesterday
on Product Hunt, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they got Product of the Day yesterday on Product Hunt. We were very excited to be part of that launch and help them. But we've been a partner with them since the early days, and they've been really an amazing partner. I use them personally daily in my workflow. So Ply is an interesting concept. It's similar to Zapier or Make. It gets triggered by adding actionable buttons into your environment. So you can add buttons to Smartsuite to interact with other tools, or you can add buttons to other tools to interact with Smartsuite. Think of it as a Zapier or Make with buttons that trigger the workflow and with modals that pop up based on how you set them up. And so I can even demonstrate a quick live example.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what you're saying is essentially we could have something set up in Smartsuite, and with Ply, we can have that embedded just the action of triggering that automation or that process is outside of Smartsuite, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So essentially similar to Zapier or Make, but it's with actual buttons. And so I'll just show you for a moment. We have, for example, in our sales CRM, a process where, let's say I would want to go ahead and do outreach to prospects. And so up top over here, you'll notice I have a send outreach button, which is not really a Smartsuite button. And you can tell by the styling. And I did this. You can actually style it to look like a Smartsuite button. But this is being added by this extension over here. It's not a native button, but it looks like a native button. And if I click it, this runs down over here, and it kind of runs the custom process I asked it to run. And in this process, it pre-fills, it sets up this modal where it pre-populates the email from the record. It pre-populates, it allows me to add, CCs. It pre-populates the person's name from the record. I get to customize this email if I wanted to. And then when I hit done, I can move on to the next record. What really happens in the background is the status changes from assigned to email sent and automatically, and a new draft gets created in my inbox with that entire email, sender, subject, everything pre-populated, where I can just hit send out of my inbox. And the reason, and technically I could have had the email just sent automatically using my email credentials. The reason I have it set up like that is because I want to have email tracking, which is through an extension on my inbox. So that's like one example how we use Ply. You can use Ply in Slack to add new records to Smartsuite. So it's just a button, and if you get a specific message, I guess the workflow where Ply comes in handy is when you want to trigger automation workflows, but you don't want them happening constantly without control over them, like Zapier or Make. You actually want them to happen when you trigger a button, and then have the input opportunity if you'd like that. And so they're very similar in terms of like the steps that you set up on the back end, like just the steps, do this, then do this, then do this. You can set up logic, if this, if that, but there's that component of kind of intervention in the middle with like these modals that I just showed you, as well as buttons to trigger the workflow. So we have users using it in a variety of different ways. I use it, for example, if I need to do data entry and collect, let's say, YouTube videos into our internal solutions, I can highlight the subject of the video and then click it into Ply, and it automatically adds a new record in Smartsuite and it pre-populates the date field, the subject, and the link, or
that's definitely another product for us to look into.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to make introductions. We work with the CEO here all the time. They're a great product, but hopefully that was a long-winded of like, this is how we see integrations at Smartsuite. We're trying to make it as open as possible and allow things to be as easy as possible to integrate and interact with other products.
Great. Yeah. We have one. I think we'll take one last question. It's from Francis. So I think I saw a post from you on LinkedIn today or the day before about like what are the plans for AI or regarding AI with the Smartsuite products. Can you tell us a bit about your roadmap on this specific aspect?
Yeah, so this is something actually very exciting. Obviously, we just unveiled this yesterday at an event, at a no-code event yesterday. John unveiled our AI capabilities. These are still early projects. Some of them obviously need a lot of more refinement. Some of them are more, have progressed already and are almost ready for release. But essentially, we're working on an AI on 3 different areas of the platform, and I can share some of them a little bit with you now. And so the first spot is when you want to generate solutions. And so typically in Smartsuite, to generate a solution, you can either look at templates, and we have over 200 best-in-class templates, or you can start from scratch. This just got added yesterday, which is Ask AI to generate. It's not available for all customers yet, but will be.
So we shouldn't be looking for this in our own Smartsuite instead.
Yeah, well, I would assume within a few weeks, we'll start rolling this out to all customers. This is still in early testing, but obviously on our internal accounts, we're already testing it. That's the stage that we're at, basically.
Okay.
So essentially, you ask it. So you just simply describe your workflow. So you would say, I'm a car dealer. I want a solution to manage my used cars, customers, and prospects. And it would go ahead and it would populate what it thinks is a best-in-class solution for such a workflow, and even generate demo data so you can see how to interact with it, sets up the solution for you, links the records and all that. And then you can go ahead and customize it, but it gives you a starting point, or it gives you a kind of brainstorming session of what solutions.
Okay.
And obviously, as time goes on, we expect this to get better and better, where people can really use this to build out full-blown solutions with hundreds of fields without having to really
at the beginning. I guess it will be like a one-off thing. You can only do this at the setup stage, and not like once the base the solution exists already, or
right. So I guess it would be at the setup of a solution stage. So obviously, at any point of a workspace, you can come in and add a new solution. So yes, this would be when you're going to generate a new solution within your existing workspace. You'd be able to just ask AI, and you can get as detailed as possible and say, I'm a fitness coach and I have XYZ amount of clients, and we have gyms, and we need to correlate our gyms, trainers, and clients, and so on. And so that's kind of project number one for us. Project number two, which I'm really excited about, is this AI assistant over here on the bottom, right next to the intercom modal. So this assistant over here is supposed to interact with you inside the solution contextually, and you can ask it questions about the data in here, so it can give you insights. So you can say how many records are
nice. Yeah. So it's not just about the Smartsuite product; it's about the specific data you have in your solution. Wow.
Exactly.
Nice.
And so, how many clinics do I have? How many of them are rehab? How many of them, still need a contact? How many of them are in what stage? How many of them are in Dublin?
Is it reliable? Is it like how what are the results at the moment?
Right. So at the moment, it knows based on field types, right? So essentially, if you ask it a clear question that it can figure out based on a status field type or a multi-select or a single select, it knows the answer. When you get a little more fancy, it kind of sometimes times out, which is why, again, these are all early stage projects for us that we're hoping to improve over time. And which is why we're not releasing them yet as well. We want to get them to a better place before we release. But
that sounds really, really promising. I mean, the first thing is obviously nice to have, I would say. But this is the real power.
Yeah. And this can generate reports, and so I can ask it, essentially, once it gives me the insight, I say, can you generate a new view for me? And it would generate an AI view.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And it names the view, and it just adds a little AI icon, so that was an AI generated view, and it just creates a filtered view for the data you asked for it. So that's kind of
that sounds amazing, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this personally. I think this will help people kind of interact with the data they have. People have big data sets, and so if I can just ask my assistant to create a report for me, like, that'd be great, right?
More than great, yeah.
And then the last piece, I'll just so that's the second AI project. The third AI project we are working on right now is going to be in our rich document capabilities. So this would be if you're adding a smart doc field, which is like full rich, similar to like Notion or Google Sheets, where we have like, as a field type, you can set up rich document capability, or same thing, for example, in the description, you have rich editing capability. And so I'll just go into the smart doc, expand it. And if you hit space, and this is something that's already like pretty much fleshed out. It should be rolled out within probably a week to most customers. And so essentially, if I'm at the beginning of any paragraph and I hit space, I'll get this AI pop up over here that allows me to say, create a
Nice. It works similar than in Notion, I guess. Right?
yeah, exactly. So create a blog post.
Also powered by Anthropic behind the scene, or
What's that?
is it also Anthropic, Claude, the AI engine behind?
So we're using GPT, OpenAI.
Oh, yeah, it's OpenAI. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're using OpenAI, and essentially you can just ask it to do abstract things like write a blog, write a social media post, help me brainstorm, or you can use any of our pre-populated commands, right? So, write an outline about, and then XYZ, and on the background, it's adding, whatever it is, or, social media post, right? So it's just, it has the command prompts on the back end to say whatever I follows this should turn into a social media post. And then obviously once you have information in the record, you can highlight it and interact with it. So essentially it's essentially ChatGPT within your writing environment to draft whatever you want to draft within the record. And again, this is available right now here, and eventually we're going to expand it most probably into the comments, and more importantly, the email section. So, like we talked about,
variables and generate everything.
Exactly. So essentially the email, I'll be able to just, use AI to draft my emails contextually from the record. We're going to allow you to use AI to just populate the record in the first place. And so those are kind of the 3 core AI projects. And then obviously we're opening ourselves to any external products that are bringing AI to interact. And so Ply, for example, has an AI component that they released already. So you can interact with AI through Ply within our product or other products. And then Zapier obviously is releasing their OpenAI extension, which we're a part of as well. So, that's kind of opening up the AI ecosystem, which is an exciting one.
I think that's too much information or exciting features in such a packed the demo. So thanks for all this. I think it will get the whole team very excited, and we're looking forward to bring the first client project to life with Smartsuite. That really great. So today we had with us some product managers, salespeople. So now they'll all be out there trying to spread the word about Smartsuite. Thanks a lot, Avi. Again, we'll be in touch very soon because we're really excited about your product.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.